Beneath the genteel manners, the delicate dresses, and the fragrant parlors of sprawling plantations, a darker reality lingered. Dimly lit hallways stretched into shadow, shuttered windows letting in slivers of sunlight that only highlighted the dust and decay. Behind these walls, some women wielded power in ways history refused to record, acts so hidden, so filthy, they were erased from memory. The enslaved moved quietly through these spaces, their labor relentless, their bodies and spirits constrained by chains that were both visible and invisible. What crimes were committed behind closed doors? And why did no one dare speak of them? These were not the stories preserved in polite histories, but the shocking, disturbing truths of sexual coercion, manipulation, and private cruelty perpetrated by women who commanded authority in the intimate spaces of plantation life. In the 18th and 19th centuries, plantations were monuments to wealth and refinement. Magnificent mansions rose from the landscape, adorned with manicured gardens, airy porches, and polished floors. Nearby, the enslaved lived in cramped, deteriorating quarters, their existence dictated by law, labor, and custom. White mistresses of the household occupied a curious position, outwardly refined and socially constrained, yet secretly powerful in the private domain. Their authority over enslaved men, women, and children was absolute within the domestic sphere. To the world, these women were symbols of refinement. Behind closed doors, however, some became perpetrators of unspeakable acts. And the shadows of their power concealed deeds so abhorrent that no historian dared fully reveal them, leaving generations unaware of the private horrors that thrived under the guise of civility. The system of slavery was not only one of chains and labor, it was a meticulously orchestrated structure of control, manipulation, and terror. Enslaved men endured daily grueling labor, relentless surveillance, and brutal punishment at the hands of white men. Yet the control exerted by white women operated in subtler, more intimate spaces. They manipulated, coerced, and silenced with a precision that was terrifying in its quietness. Fear became both the mechanism and the weapon, ensuring obedience not only in the fields but in private rooms where prying eyes could not intrude. Chains of iron constrained the body, chains of desire, fear, and intimidation confined the spirit. But what horrors unfolded in the privacy of attics, kitchens after dark, and secluded guest rooms, where no outsider could witness, record, or intervene. Behind plantation walls, secret spaces became arenas of abuse and domination. Diaries, letters, and oral histories whisper of sexual coercion that thrived in the hidden corners of wealth. White mistresses, isolated and empowered, could manipulate the men under their control, using their authority to enforce compliance, intimidation, and perverse pleasure. These acts were rarely documented publicly. They were hidden, leaving enslaved men voiceless and trapped. Intimacy became a weapon, privacy became cruelty, and every interaction was a test of survival. The enslaved endured these horrors in silence, their resilience forced into secrecy, their suffering preserved only in whispered recollections and the faint traces that survived in the margins of history. The trauma endured by enslaved men was profound, invisible, and enduring. Humiliation, shame, and fear intertwined, shaping identities and eroding dignity. Physical exhaustion compounded the emotional toll, and any attempt to resist could result in severe punishment. These abuses inflicted intergenerational wounds, influencing descendants' perceptions of masculinity, authority, and self-worth. The scars were invisible, etched not on the skin but on the soul, lingering long after the physical horrors ceased. Survival required silence, a compliance that was both protective and devastating, leaving emotional and psychological shadows that stretched across time. How do we reckon with histories that were deliberately hidden, buried under the weight of propriety and social myth? For centuries, polite society refused to acknowledge the abuses perpetrated by white mistresses. The idea that women could wield power in such insidious ways was unthinkable, unmentionable, and unrecorded. Yet the evidence survived. Hidden diaries, fragmented letters, and oral testimonies passed through generations whispered truths that could not be silenced. Historians and descendants began to piece together the fragments, uncovering patterns of coercion, manipulation, and sexual exploitation that reframed what had once been labeled as favoritism or special duties. Slowly, a hidden history emerged, revealing that the power dynamics within plantation households were far more complex and far more disturbing than traditional narratives suggested. What does it mean when we finally confront truths that were meant to stay buried? It means we are forced to acknowledge the humanity of victims and the dark cunning of those who abused their positions. The cultural reactions to these revelations were immediate and visceral. Disbelief, moral outrage, and shock rippled through academic circles and descendant communities alike. Myths surrounding white womanhood, the innocent, delicate figure immune to cruelty, were dismantled by the weight of evidence. Scholars emphasized the necessity of including male victim perspectives in historical studies of slavery, challenging long-held assumptions and reshaping how we understand the domestic sphere of the plantation. Families confronted the legacies of their ancestors, grappling with shame, guilt, and the knowledge that evil had existed where they least expected it. These revelations demand that we question not only the stories we've been told, but also the silences that allowed such crimes to remain hidden for centuries. And yet, much remains unspoken, waiting for the light of scrutiny to illuminate its shadowed corners. Power, when isolated and unchecked, has a corrosive effect. White mistresses, constrained by societal expectations in public, found in their private domain a dangerous freedom. Their authority over the enslaved was absolute in secluded spaces, and their social isolation, combined with the rigid hierarchies of plantation life, sometimes warped personal morality into coercion and abuse. Gender, race, and social status collided, creating secret arenas where desire, frustration, and domination intertwine. Psychological insights suggest that control became a coping mechanism, a means to assert power in a system that otherwise restricted them. Yet these acts were not mere survival, they were conscious exercises of cruelty, manipulations designed to enforce fear and compliance. Power, when unchecked, transforms into acts too disturbing to acknowledge until now. Can we understand these abuses without excusing them? Perhaps, but only if we confront the full weight of their human cost. Even amid the darkness, the stories of resilience emerge. Enslaved men navigated these treacherous dynamics with ingenuity, subtlety, and courage. Survival required understanding moods, anticipating threats, and preserving fragments of dignity. Small acts of defiance, a carefully measured word, a glance, a coded refusal became acts of quiet resistance. Oral traditions preserved memories of survival and resistance, ensuring that even when the details of horror were obscured, the essence of courage and endurance remained. Every step toward survival was a reclamation of humanity in a world designed to strip it away, a testament to the strength of those forced into silence and suffering. As sunlight filters through cracked shutters and dust-filled beams, the visual landscape mirrors the haunting truths of these narratives. Empty rooms, decaying furniture, and abandoned corridors are not merely relics of a bygone era. They are witnesses to the abuse, the manipulation, and the intimate cruelty that history long ignored. The walls themselves seem to hold memory, whispering of acts that went unrecorded and lives that endured beyond the visible scars. To honor these stories is to confront history fully, to acknowledge the silenced, and to understand the enduring consequences of unchecked power. The plantation walls may have kept their secrets for centuries, but the truth, finally unearthed, demands to be heard. These are not tales of imagined cruelty. They are the lived realities of enslaved men and women, navigating terror in the shadow of wealth and refinement. The sexual crimes, the psychological manipulations, and the private abuses of white mistresses are a stark reminder of the potential for power to corrupt and the resilience required to endure. Education, remembrance, and acknowledgement are our tools for justice, ensuring that these hidden histories inform our understanding of both past and present. History holds the whispers of those silenced. The untold sexual crimes of white mistresses are a call to bear witness, to listen, and to prevent repetition. The shadows of plantation halls may be long, and the memories they carry may be painful, but they are essential. To deny them is to deny the truth of suffering, resilience, and humanity. In acknowledging these horrors, we honor those who endured, survived, and resisted. We ensure that their stories, though hidden for generations, now demand recognition, reflection, and remembrance. The plantation walls kept their secrets for centuries, but the truth, finally unearthed, insists on being heard.